The late afternoon sun paints the horizon in deep gold as a Lufthansa Boeing 747-8 emerges from a thin layer of clouds at 38,000 feet. From the ground, that unmistakable humpbacked silhouette slices across the sky, a sight that, for most travelers today, has become almost mythical. British Airways, retired, Qantas, gone, United and Delta, parked in the desert, yet here it is, Lufthansa's flagship still carrying hundreds of passengers across oceans as if it were the 1990s all over again. It's easy to assume this is pure sentimentality, the airline clinging to a romantic chapter in aviation history, but that theory falls apart once you understand Lufthansa's mindset. This isn't nostalgia, it's strategy. For more than half a century, the German flag carrier has maintained an unbroken relationship with Boeing's most iconic jet, flying nearly every variant from the original 747-100 in 1970 to the advanced 747-8 Intercontinental today. They weren't just early adopters. They were long-term partners, building a reservoir of operational experience few airlines on Earth can match. The 747 itself holds a unique place in aviation's cultural memory. Dubbed the Queen of the Skies, it revolutionized long-haul travel in the 1970s, making intercontinental flights accessible to the masses while redefining luxury for first-class travelers. Its upper-deck lounge, spiral staircases, and spacious cabins became the stuff of legend, but legends don't pay the fuel bill. The modern airline industry is shaped by an entirely different set of rules. Rising fuel prices, tightening emissions regulations, and relentless competition have all conspired to phase out four-engine aircraft in favor of lighter, more efficient twin jets like the Boeing 777 and Airbus A350. On paper, the Queen's reign should have ended years ago, yet Lufthansa never signed her abdication. As other carriers rushed to replace their jumbos, Lufthansa doubled down, not because they ignored the new economics, but because they saw a narrow, high-value niche where the 747-8 could still dominate. And it's in that calculated defiance that the real story begins. Frankfurt Airport on a weekday morning might look calm from the outside, but inside it's a chessboard of logistics. Every runway, every gate, and especially every takeoff or landing slot is a piece of high-value real estate for Lufthansa. In the airline world, a slot isn't just a scheduled departure time, it's a strategic asset that determines which routes you can fly, when you can fly them, and how much revenue you can generate. Now picture this. Lufthansa needs to move roughly 400 passengers from Frankfurt to New York during one of the busiest departure waves of the day, but they have only one takeoff slot. A Boeing 777 or Airbus A350 could carry perhaps 300 to 350 passengers, unless you start cutting into the premium cabin space that delivers the biggest profits. A Boeing 747-8, however, can carry more than 360 passengers in a premium heavy configuration, plus nearly 30 tons of high-value cargo in the belly. That's not just a handful of extra seats, that's 100 additional passengers on a single flight, which means 700 more passengers per week, or more than 36,000 per year on just one route. And when those additional seats are disproportionately filled with business and first-class travelers, the revenue upside isn't measured in thousands, but in millions of euros annually. The routes Lufthansa assigns to its 747-8s are the industry's gold mines. New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, Delhi, markets where premium demand constantly exceeds supply. In aviation, the majority of profit often comes from fewer than 20% of the seats. Maximizing the yield from a single precious slot by flying more high-paying passengers is exactly the kind of strategic play that keeps the 747-8 relevant. And there's another layer few outside the industry appreciate: cargo. When an airline can carry a full load of high-yield passengers and also sell the lower deck for freight, the economics become even more attractive. Shipments of pharmaceuticals, high-end electronics, and luxury goods from Europe to the US, Japan, or India can generate hundreds of thousands of euros in revenue each week. With the 747 and 8, Lufthansa isn't just selling seats, they're selling some of the most valuable cargo space in the industry. But capacity alone doesn't explain why Lufthansa can keep the 747-8 flying when most other carriers have retired theirs. The other half of the equation is a competitive edge many airlines simply can't replicate: financial ownership and in-house maintenance dominance. Most airlines operating large long-haul aircraft are locked into expensive, multi-year lease agreements with global lessors. Those lease payments are a fixed cost that comes due whether the aircraft is flying or sitting idle. Lufthansa is different. They own 100% of their 747 and 8 fleet outright. No lease checks, no third-party restrictions on how they configure or upgrade the cabins, and no financial penalty for parking an aircraft temporarily if needed. Owning the aircraft is one thing, but maintaining them is another challenge entirely. This is where Lufthansa Technik, Europe's largest aircraft maintenance operation, becomes the trump card. Spread across massive hangars in Germany and beyond, Lufthansa Technik services not only the airline's own fleet, but also aircraft from clients worldwide, including cargo carriers and government fleets. They can 3D print parts, perform complex engine overhauls, and most importantly, do all of it at a lower cost than outsourcing. For other airlines, keeping older 4-engine aircraft airworthy quickly becomes financially unviable. Spare parts get scarce, specialized technicians retire, and maintenance delays compound costs. Lufthansa turns that problem into an advantage, maintaining its own 747-8s with dedicated teams and a well-stocked parts inventory, built on decades of accumulated expertise. Even during the COVID-19 crisis, when global aviation ground to a halt and airlines parked fleets in deserts while still paying leases and storage fees, Lufthansa adapted fast. Instead of letting their 747-08 sit idle, they shifted many of them into cargo operations, hauling medical supplies, industrial components, and other high-value freight. The result? They kept cash flowing while competitors bled money. By the time passenger travel began recovering, Lufthansa had retained not only their entire 747-8 fleet, but also the operational know-how and infrastructure to keep them profitable. For Lufthansa, the 747-8 isn't a burden from a bygone era. It's a revenue-generating asset made possible by the rare combination of owning the aircraft and controlling the ecosystem that keeps them flying. Numbers and strategy are one thing, but ask frequent flyers why they book a Lufthansa 747-8, and the conversation shifts to something far more emotional: the experience. The moment you step on board, it's clear this isn't just another widebody. The 747's distinctive nose, iconic upper deck, and generously proportioned cabins create a sense of space that no twinjet can truly replicate. Walk into the nose section in first class, and you're literally ahead of the pilots, a unique quirk of the 747's design. The curvature of the fuselage creates an intimate, cocoon-like space that feels more like a private lounge than an aircraft cabin. Upstairs, the legendary upper deck business class, accessed by a compact staircase, offers a quiet, club-like atmosphere away from the main deck bustle. Lufthansa is betting heavily on enhancing these spaces with its ambitious Allegris cabin upgrade program. In first class, floor-to-ceiling suites will offer complete privacy, with full double beds and 43-inch curved displays. Business class is being reimagined with a mix of seat types, from extra long beds to private suites, all with direct aisle access. While the rollout has been slower than planned, partly due to the complexity of retrofitting a double-decker jumbo, the results are striking. Even with a partially updated cabin, new seats in the lower deck business section, but older products upstairs, passengers are actively rebooking flights to experience the updated Queen. For long-haul travelers, the comfort difference is tangible: wider aisles, larger galleys, and the subtle psychological lift of being in an aircraft that feels open, not compressed. There's also the nostalgia factor, which Lufthansa has smartly woven into its brand. In a market increasingly dominated by ultra-efficient but sterile twinjets, the 747-8 stands out as a piece of living aviation history. That uniqueness becomes a marketing asset. The airline can sell not just a seat, but an experience, something you can't get on a 777 or A350. For a certain segment of travelers, that's reason enough to choose Lufthansa over a competitor, even at a premium fare. And in a world where premium passengers generate the lion's share of profits, maintaining an aircraft that can carry more of them and make them feel special, it directly strengthens Lufthansa's brand equity and bottom line. Of course, even the most carefully crafted strategy has an expiration date. The 747-8 may be more efficient than its predecessors thanks to its GEnx engines, which consume roughly 15% less fuel than the previous generation, but it's still a 4-engine jet in an increasingly 2-engine world. Environmental regulations in Europe are tightening year by year, and activists often target quadjets as symbols of excess emissions. On the competitive front, Boeing's 777X, despite years of delays and cost overruns, is still slated to arrive later this decade. When it does, it will offer similar range and payload with 2 engines, further narrowing the 747-8's economic advantage. Lufthansa has already ordered both the 777X and additional Airbus A350s, signaling that they're preparing for the Queen's eventual farewell. Still, Lufthansa's fleet plan is revealing. The airline projects flying its 747-8s well into the 2030s. That's not a phase-out schedule. That's a commitment to nearly 6 decades of continuous 747 operations. The calculus is clear. Until new aircraft can match the 747-8's unique combination of passenger capacity, premium yield, and cargo capability, all within the constraints of slot-limited hubs, the Queen remains a key piece of the puzzle. There's also a strategic lesson here that extends far beyond aviation. Don't follow the herd if your competitive environment is different. British Airways and Qantas exited the 747 business because their networks and constraints made the economics untenable. Lufthansa stayed because their hub structure, premium-heavy routes, and maintenance empire turned the same aircraft into a profit center. In business terms, this is a case study in asset optimization. By fully owning their aircraft, controlling the technical support ecosystem, and tailoring deployment to routes where the 747-8's advantages are magnified, Lufthansa has extended the economic life of a platform most analysts wrote off years ago. When the last Lufthansa 747-8 eventually rolls to a stop for the final time, it will mark the end of an era, not just for the airline, but for commercial aviation itself. Whether this chapter is remembered as the Queen's glorious final act or as proof that a so-called obsolete design can still thrive will depend on how you view the intersection of nostalgia and strategy. For now, each Lufthansa 747-8 departure is more than a flight. It's a statement that with the right vision, operational discipline, and willingness to defy conventional wisdom, even the most written-off assets can still reign supreme. The question is, how long can this reign last?